Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. Everybody is hearing me all right out there in Zoom land?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay.
Yeah, Maharaj, I'm hearing you good.
Good, good. So we are going to discuss the appearance of Sukadeva Goswami, and today's verse is Canto 1, Chapter 19, Text 32. So this one is about realizations that everyone's having about the appearance of Sukadeva Goswami and the importance of good association, especially saintly association, which is more than just good association. It's on beyond good association. It's very, very edifying and actually essential, as we learn from Lord Chaitanya's teaching. So let's go with our... Whoop. Come on. Okay, here we go. No, still not going. There we go, finally. We got what I wanted here. Here is our verse. Parikshid uvacha aho adya vayam brahman, aho adya vayam brahman, sat sevya kshatra bandhava, sat sevya kshatra bandhava, kripayatiti rupena, kripayatiti rupena, bhavadvistirtaka kritaha, bhavadvistirtaka kritaha. Pragarikshid uvacha adyo adya, aho adya vayam brahman, sat sevya kshatra bandhavaha, kripayatiti rupena, bhavadvistirtaka kritaha. So, the translation of this verse, or rather we'll do the word for word first. Parikshit uvacha, the fortunate Maharaj Parikshit said, aho, adya, today, vayam, we, brahman, o brahmana, sat sevya, eligible to serve the devotee, kshatra, the ruling class, bandhavaha, friends, kripaya, by your mercy, atiti rupena, in the manner of a guest, bhavadibihi, by your good self, tirtakaha, qualified for being places of pilgrimage, kritaha, done by you. So here is the translation. The fortunate King Parikshit said, O Brahmana, by your mercy only you have sanctified us, making us like unto places of pilgrimage, by all your presence here as my guest. By your mercy, we, who are but unworthy royalty, become eligible to serve the devotee. And I'll read that once more. The fortunate King Parikshit said, O Brahmana, by your mercy only, you have sanctified us, making us like unto places of pilgrimage, all by your presence here as my guest. By your mercy, we, who are but unworthy royalty, become eligible to serve the devotee. and there's not a long purport. We'll go through it here. Saintly devotees like Shukadeva Goswami generally do not approach worldly enjoyers, especially those in royal orders. Maharaj Prataparudra was a follower of Lord Chaitanya, but when he wanted to see the Lord refused to see him because he was a king. For a devotee who desires to go back to Godhead, two things are strictly prohibited: worldly enjoyers and women. Therefore, the devotees of the standard of Shukadeva Goswami are never interested in seeing kings. Maharaj Parikshit was, of course, in a different case. He was a great devotee, although a king, and therefore Shukadeva Goswami came to see him in his last stage of life. Maharaj Parikshit, out of his devotional humility, felt himself an unworthy descendant of his great Kshatriya forefathers, although he was as great as his predecessors. The unworthy sons of the royal orders are called Kshatriya Bandhavas, as unworthy sons of the Brahmanas are called Dvija Bandhus or Brahma Bandhus. Maharaj Parikshit was greatly encouraged by the presence of Shukadeva Goswami. I'm going to mute this. He felt himself sanctified by the presence of the great saint, whose presence turns any place into a place of pilgrimage. So, Parikshit uvacha adya aho adya vayam brahman satsevya kshatra bandhavaha kripayatiti rupena bhavadvis tirtaka kritaha. The fortunate King Parikshit said, "O Brahmana, by your mercy only you have sanctified us, making us like unto places of pilgrimage, all by your presence here as my guest. By your mercy, we, who are but unworthy royalty, become eligible to serve the devotee." Okay, so this is an interesting setting, of course, as we have, discussed before, that when you have all these great sages together and you have someone like Sukadeva Goswami, it is a awesome and amazing scene, one that we do not see in our modern times, where people have put aside so many worldly considerations and they're simply involved in just coming together to hear, just like we are trying to do right now ourselves. We are trying to come together to hear. I wanted to start, before we get into today's discussion, to see if anyone in the group here who is present on Zoom has any question, either about this particular section that we're discussing here or about anything in general. Would you like to ask a question? I'll start off like that, and then if not, we'll proceed on with the talk. Let me unmute. Okay. All right, so no one's coming forward right away. Let me move on then. We will go forward here. So it's kind of amazing, really, to think about, as I call it here, a world gone right. During Krishna's time, And at the time of Maharaj Pariksit, which was a little bit later, there was times when people were doing what they were supposed to be doing, and people in general were mostly doing what they were supposed to be doing. And you had a world gone right, a world where mostly the climate wasn't too adverse, where there was enough to eat, where people weren't bullied by horrible economic and climatic and economic forces, where people didn't have to struggle like anything just to stay alive. And it was not uncommon to see people coming together to discuss scripture. It was not uncommon at all. So we can just see how we have to contrast that to where we are today. A very different kind of world. Certainly not a world gone right. You can just think, even now, when we come together to hear Bhagavatam, we have to make an effort to slow down and to stop kind of thinking about where we're going next, or, the big temple cleaning marathon that's scheduled for today for everybody. We have to kind of plug out and slow down and try to think about what we're really trying to accomplish overall in our lives. Because in our present society, it has a great, strong mood or ethos to it. And that ethos says, you don't have time for this kind of, sitting down and talking about abstract stuff. You have to actually do some serious work. That's what you have to do. So, just move on, don't spend the time. But actually, this is what we desperately do need to do. And if we do it, we will be much the better for it. So slowing down is not an easy thing, but it's something we have to do. And then once we become a little bit slowed down, then we have to make our brains try to focus in on what's actually going on. So this is our verse, Maharaj Pariksit is fasting on the bank of the Jamuna or Ganga, whatever you want to think of it. And he was hearing from various sages, and then he began to hear from particularly Shukadeva Goswami, who arrived there. And in a moment we'll hear how, he arrived while he had a whole coterie of people following him, but they were kind of taunters, or they were people who were deriding him. But when they saw the demeanor of the sages and their deference to Shukadeva Goswami, they immediately understood that they had gotten the whole idea wrong about who Pariksit was. Who Shukadeva was. Okay, so this was our verse. Pariksit uvacha aho adya vayam brahman sat sevya kshatriya bandava kripya titi rupena bhavadbis tirtaka kritaha. The fortunate king Pariksit said, O Brahmanas, by your mercy only you have sanctified us, making us unto places of pilgrimage, all by your presence here as my guest. By your mercy we, who are but unworthy royalty, become eligible to serve the devotees. So by associating with great persons, we become great persons. And we need to associate with great persons. Great persons are like places of pilgrimage, but they are better than places of pilgrimage. We talked about last week how actually devotees purify places of pilgrimage. Somewhere I forget, in some scripture, or maybe it was something Prabhupada said, the idea is there that even those who live on the Ganga, they go to some other place to get purified. You live in the Ganga, so you don't have to go anywhere. You just a few steps and you're actually in the Ganga, which most people come from far, far away to be able to take a dip in the Ganga. But if you live at the Ganga, then you go somewhere else. You go some faraway place like Bhadarak Ashram or something like that, or you go to South India or to one of these kind of places, so that you feel like you've gone through some austerity to get there, and then you appreciate the holy place. So the holy places are purified by the people who come there, because actually the people who come there, the sages, not only are they purifying the holy place, they're the ones who give you the information by which you can genuinely purify your life. I wanted to focus on one of the themes that Prabhupada put forward in this particular purport. He spoke about this idea that Lord Chaitanya, he avoided Maharaj Prataparudra. Lord Chaitanya was asked by the assembled Vaishnavas to give audience to Prataparudra, who was a great king. He was, coming down that same line, many, many years after Parikshit. And he was a great ruler. And he was very, very self-controlled and very spiritual. However, when asked, Lord Chaitanya blankly and flatly refused to meet with him. And the devotees thought that maybe Lord Chaitanya was just in one of his strange moods that they couldn't understand. So they tried on a couple of other occasions to go before Lord Chaitanya and change his mind. But Lord Chaitanya refused to budge. In fact, he became so strong at one point on his opinion to not meet Prataparudra that he told the devotees, if you bring this matter up one more time, I'm going to disappear and you will never see me. So the devotees were terrified with that kind of a threat made by Lord Chaitanya, and so therefore they didn't bring the matter up again. But they hatched the idea that if they just glorified Prataparudra, that Lord Chaitanya would eventually come around and accept the idea or the fact that he should see Prataparudra. There was a time when Lord Chaitanya gave Prataparudra his loincloth, and at one point Lord Chaitanya agreed to meet Prataparudra's son and embraced him and so forth, but he still refused to meet Prataparudra, which is an interesting thing, because if you look into Chaitanya Charitamrita, you will see that there's another person, Ramananda Roy, who Lord Chaitanya did not refuse to meet, and they were both rulers. In fact, Ramananda Roy was a sub-ruler under Prataparudra, so he was a subordinate to Prataparudra. However, Lord Chaitanya made no effort to avoid Ramananda Roy. In fact, when they first met, they embraced, even in the company of people who would be bewildered by the whole thing, So Lord Chaitanya understood who Ramananda Roy was, and he eagerly embraced him, although they did not engage in any conversation there, but rather they made the pact that they would soon get together, but outside the prying eyes of people who were unable to appreciate their rasa. So they would come together. And I think Prataparudra was somewhere in, southeast India, around Bhubaneswar or, Orissa, somewhere in that region down there. And he was embraced by Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya spoke very intimately with him. He was also a ruler. But why did Lord Chaitanya have one attitude towards Ramananda Roy and a very different attitude towards Prataparudra? It's an interesting question. I don't believe that question is answered directly anywhere in the scriptures, but I would say that one of the themes there is that Prataparudra was very, very wealthy, whereas Ramananda Roy, although he was a ruler, he seemed to be not so well-to-do. And he was, of course, this is one of those things that we should always be aware of, that sometimes the Lord does things because he understands who we are in a very special way. And he might treat one person in one way and another person in a different way. And we might think, well, look at that, that person over there, he didn't have to go through this garbage that I had to go through. He got advanced right away. He got promoted right away. But I had to go through all this other stuff. Or, I have to have this lowly position, but over there somebody's got a very high position. And we think like that. We think that somehow or other we've been misunderstood or passed over. But really, everything is a part of the overall plan of the Supreme Lord. And Prataparudra was not at all angry or frustrated, nor did he feel envious of Ramananda Roy. And Lord Chaitanya really could have rubbed it in. He did rub it in one sense, because Lord Chaitanya begged Ramananda Roy to come and live nearby in, Puri. And when Ramananda Roy asked Prataparudra if that was possible, here was what Prataparudra desperately wanted himself, just to get some small audience with Lord Chaitanya. But his subordinate, Ramananda Roy, is getting not just a little darshan with Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is asking him to live nearby. And, you could see how this would be a perfect situation to bring out the envy in someone, Here, although Prataparudra is the greater, he's the more worldly, powerful, the subordinate is the one that Lord Chaitanya has given the mercy to. And Prataparudra did not think twice. He said, my dear Ramananda Roy, certainly you can give up your administrative post and I will continue your salary. Just you are so fortunate that Lord Chaitanya has agreed to engage you and to be near you. So I am very happy for you. And, instead of being an impediment, he pulled all the stops out and even made Ramananda Roy's situation easier so he could meet with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which, of course, he did. Ramananda Roy eventually did go and spend time with Lord Chaitanya. However, things were not so easy for Prataparudra. This continued for some time. And finally, I think it was Nityananda who hatched the plan of having Prataparudra dressed down and meet Lord Chaitanya after the Rath Yatra. And then after the Rath procession had finished, Lord Chaitanya naturally felt some fatigue, and oftentimes someone would come and attend to Lord Chaitanya. In this case, it was Prataparudra, but he was not dressed as Prataparudra. And of course, Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was not fooled by such a switch in his disguise. However, he played by the game, and he immediately actually felt that there was no need for his staying away from Prataparudra now. And so Prataparudra read some verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, and eventually he was embraced by Lord Chaitanya. And so Prataparudra's dream was fulfilled finally after going through this preliminary period of being shunned by Chaitanya. So again, why was he shunned? Because generally kings are surrounded by opulence, and they're surrounded by courtesans, by ladies. They're surrounded by people who are powerful, people who are devious, people who are politically motivated. And so being at the center of the kingdom's hub is not a place that a transcendentalist wants to be. There's too much going on there, and all of it's not good. There's too much opportunity for illicit sex. There's too much intrigue going on. There's too many people with motivations. And so being around a king is certainly not what you want if you're in the renounced order of life. So this is one of the reasons. And since time immemorial, generally, renunciates, they take to the forest and they go far away from the powerful and, turbulent scene in the royal court. So this was the kind of thing that Lord Chaitanya avoided. I think to some extent that was the same way with Ramananda Roy, but Ramananda Roy agreed to meet Lord Chaitanya in secret, so he would slip away from his duties. And his duties weren't quite as intense and as far-reaching as Prataparudra's duties. And this brings up, an important point, which I'll talk about in a minute, about the need for good association. Anyone have any questions or realizations about what I've said so far? I want to try to keep this as much as possible, try to keep opening doors for dialogue, because that makes the whole thing easier to understand and digest. Anybody have any questions or realizations about what we have discussed so far?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Jai Neil.
Now, the situation with Maharaj Prataparudra and Lord Chaitanya, is that an indication of that a person can only get the mercy or get to Lord Krishna or Lord Chaitanya through the mercy of a pure devotee?
Yeah. In general, that's written up as a major rule. You'll see that in various scriptures. And Rupa Goswami makes a point of that in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in the Nectar of Devotion. Rupa Goswami describes that you will never reach the association of Krishna without the association of Vaishnavas. And he says, Ado Shraddha Tatu Sadhu Sangha. So first there's faith, then there's association. And usually we discover that without someone interfering with our lives, we would never have put one foot on the path of devotional service. So because of our karma and because of our unwillingness to engage in devotional service, we were all gliding down into hell. And because our karma is not getting better, and because our desire to turn to Krishna is certainly not there, we discover that we are not going upward at all. We're going downward, and there's no reason for us to go upward. So how would we ever come to devotional service? The answer is that somebody interferes with our downward spiral into the cesspool of material existence. Someone blocks us from going down. Just for a moment, they come in our way of being, falling off the cliff. And they say, wait. There's something called Krishna. There's something called devotional service. Are you sure you want to waste your life? Are you sure that you want to just sink in the quicksand of material existence? And if we have a little bit of realization, if we have a little bit of spiritual merit, we wake up at that moment. We think, yeah, it's right. I'm going nowhere. I'm just going to be miserable. Yeah, that's true. And at that moment, we turn around. So if that had never happened, we would have never turned around. And that's why devotees are so important. As we meet other people and try to turn them towards Krishna consciousness, they would never have any other opportunity. They may never get another opportunity. So that's why we make some effort to reach out to people. It may work, it may not work, but nonetheless, we've given them an opportunity. And this is why Vaishnavas are the most munificent, as that one verse goes, that those who are Vaishnavas are most munificent. They give Krishna, and without that we would never get it. Without bhakti, we could never get bhakti. You can do unlimited good karma, and you can even have unlimited gyan, various kinds of material understanding. But unless you engage in actual devotional service, you will never get devotional service. So you see, it's kind of a chicken and egg thing. How does it start if you have to have bhakti to get bhakti? And the answer is, the only way you can start getting bhakti without having bhakti is somebody kickstarts you from outside, and that is the nature of the devotee. So you can do unlimited good karma, and that will not bring you bhakti. You can do unlimited various kinds of material study, and that will not bring you any kind of bhakti. So good karma, or karmanmukhi sukriti, that is sukriti or pious activity that faces in the direction of karma, and muktan, what is it? It's jnananmukhi sukriti. So that kind of pious activity that faces in the direction of mukti, or liberation, or jnana, none of those two will bring us bhakti. Only bhakti will bring us bhakti. And where do we get it? We get it from a devotee. So this brings me to our next little section here, which is good association. Yeah, thank you, Anil. So we want good association. Why do we need good association? Because good association gives us inspiration. From good association, we get scriptural guidance. From good association, we have a general tendency to avoid sin, because we're living in the association of people who understand sin and who also are avoiding it. So we avoid it partly because they avoid it, and we avoid it partly because we know that socially it would be very bad for us to engage in sin. And then we have camaraderie, that we just have this feeling that, well, I may be feeling a tough go right now in the process of bhakti, but hey, so-and-so over there doing all right, so if they can make it, I can make it. So we get a sense of we're working together alongside, shoulder to shoulder with other people, and if they can make it, we can make it, so we don't feel so put upon, and we feel a tendency to want to go forward. So good association gives us inspiration, it gives us scriptural guidance, it's a deterrent from sin, and in general it just gives us good camaraderie, a tendency to feel like we're working with others who have the same goals and the same process that we do. In this particular chapter, Maharaj Parikshit, in a few verses, will describe his two main questions he wants to place before Sukadeva Goswami. And the questions are this. Ata pritchami samsiddhim yoginam paramam gurum purusa yeha yat karyam niryamanasya sarvataha. You are the spiritual master of the great saints and devotees. I am therefore begging you to show the way of perfection for all persons, especially one who is about to die. So this is our idea here, that the question put before Sukadeva Goswami is, please tell me what one should do, what is the way to act for everyone, and also especially one who's about to die. And now the question that follows it is the next verse. That was 1:19:37. This is 1:19:38. Yach trot vayam ato japyam yat kartavyam nribhi prabho smartavyam bhajiyam va bruhiyad va vaparyayam. Please let me know what a man should hear, chant, remember, worship, and also what he should not do. Please explain this to me. So Prickett wants to know what a person should hear, what they should chant, what they should remember, and worship. And he also wants to know what a person should not do. And this is his question that he's putting before Shukadeva Goswami. He feels he's very fortunate. He's gotten the association of Shukadeva Goswami. And therefore, by becoming close to Shukadeva Goswami and hearing from Shukadeva Goswami, he will be purified. And let me ask if anyone has any realizations at this point from what we've been talking about. Anybody have anything they'd like to add, or any question they might have about this section? All right. Let me move on then. I always like to leave breaks, and if someone wants to take advantage of them, they can. And I'll finish up with this last theme here, that we need purification. By associating with devotees, we become purified. By engaging devotional service, we become purified. Here is Prickett just some time earlier, before he was cursed to die. And here he is challenging the age of Kali personified. He's challenging personified Kali. And when he challenges Kali, he is about to kill him, but Kali takes shelter of Prickett, and therefore Prickett is obliged not to kill him. And instead, Kali begs the permission to live somewhere, because he's a subject of Prickett's kingdom. And if he's a subject of Prickett's kingdom, then that means that he should be given somewhere to stay. And this means that if he is given somewhere to stay, then somewhere there will be mischief. So Prickett gave him 4 places: a place where animals are slaughtered, the place where there is intoxication, the place where there is gambling, and the place where there is illicit sex. So we know those as our 4 regulative principles, gambling, intoxication, illicit sex, and meat eating. And so wherever those places are, that's where Kali will be the most strong. And if you want to go downhill fast, that's the best way to go downhill fast, is to engage wholeheartedly in those 4 activities. And if you go to a gambling casino, you can do all 4 under one roof, basically, with not much problem. So if you want to go downhill fast, that's how to do it. If you want to not go downhill fast, you have to avoid these places. Of course, Kali was aware that there were no such places in Parikshit's kingdom. So he said, you have to give me some other place. And so Parikshit gave him one more location where he could stay, and that is wherever gold is hoarded. So wherever people stockpile money and power and do not intend to use it in the service of the Supreme Lord, in such a place there will be serious sin. And this is the breeding ground of intoxication, meat eating, gambling, and illicit sex. This pulling together of monetary or economic resources without using any of it in the service of the Supreme, only using it in the service of our senses. So naturally, since time immemorial, we've been doing these things. And in the scriptures it mentions that we've accumulated sin after sin over many lifetimes. And now, with devotional service, we are melting some of that sin away. But the effects of sin are these, that you can know that you've had a very sinful past in this life or in previous lives when you were very distant from the Supreme. You don't find the Supreme attractive. You don't find the Supreme interesting. It's hard for you to stay focused on the Supreme. This is a byproduct or a effect of previous sin, of lots of previous sin. If you're very doubtful about spiritual life or its ability to reclaim you, or you're doubtful about spiritual people, this is another indication that there was a lot of sin in your past. When you find yourself unable to stay on track, you're constantly diverted by all kinds of, various kinds of tangents and allurements, then that's an indication that sin is a major factor in your past. If you get confused or you are confused, this is certainly a byproduct or a effect in the chain of cause and effect of previous sin. And of course, sin causes us to have the wrong attractions in the first place, and those wrong attractions grow with the more sin we commit. So we need to be purified from sin, and association with devotees, devotional service, and the chanting of the holy name will do this. And if we hear from advanced Vaishnavas, we will have a good chance of being intellectually aware of what we should be doing. All right, so any final realizations or ideas about any of this, so we can do some back and forth before we finalize this class today?
Maharaj Parikshit knew exactly when he was destined to die. And just by listening to the recitation of the Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by Sri Sukadeva Goswami, he was able to gain elevation.
Yeah. He was able to gain elevation, and of course he was already very elevated, but his hearing from Sukadeva Goswami is a type of devotional service. Sometimes we wonder whether, we're taking too much time to chant our japa or something like that. But chanting japa is service in itself. And so is hearing Bhagavatam or hearing Bhagavad Gita. It is service. It's not just that we're doing it so that we can go do some service, but to hear from someone is actually to engage in service to that person. So Parikshit is engaged in service to Sukadeva Goswami because Sukadeva Goswami wasn't a king, he wasn't a taskmaster, he wasn't a planner, he wasn't an administrator, he was a sage, he was a renunciate. And what do renunciates and sages do? The only thing they really do is run their mouth. That's what sages are up to. That's what they're all about. And so if you listen to them, you're doing service. Of course, they may also have some project that they can engage you in, but that's another thing. But essentially, this is the idea here, that by his focused, rapt, and his humble attention to what Sukadeva Goswami is speaking is what purified Parikshit to the point where when he left his body, he went back home, back to Godhead. Whatever left there was that might have been an impediment was burned up in the fire for 7 days, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. The first time, that it was actually spoken in a coordinated, sort of organized way. Any other questions? Yeah, thank you. Any other questions or realizations?
Hi, Krishna.
I have a question.
Okay.
I would like for you to elaborate more on the cause of wrong attraction. Number 5, the sin number 5.
You're talking about the attraction of, yeah. Right. So this is a part of the whole idea of the cycle that we hear about in the Nectar of Devotion, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, but it's not very elaborately described. Damodar Swami, in his book, he describes it a little bit more in his Waves of Devotion. And I'm not sure where he gets it from, but there is 4 parts to sin. There's what we call aparabdha karma, there is parabdha karma, and there is bija, and there is kutastha. So the bija is, as it sounds in Sanskrit, the word bija means seed. So why is it that, 2 children are playing, and these 2 children are experiencing the same thing that mostly other children experience, but they do something completely different? I was hearing about a story in England where 2 10-year-old boys murdered a 5-year-old. They went to a shopping mall, and they took this 5-year-old by the hand and led him away, and the mall cameras caught them. And of course, 2 young boys walking with another even younger child isn't too particularly out of the ordinary for most people. So even though older adults saw this, they thought there must be something behind it, that, they were relatives or the parents were somewhere close by. So nobody did anything. And these 2 boys brought this, 5-year-old child onto railroad tracks, and then they hit him with rocks and stones and a big metal object, and it just left him there. And the police were looking for, some time, trying to figure out how this young child could have been murdered in such a brutal way. And they were totally taken aback when it was discovered that this child was murdered by 2 10-year-old boys. So why is it that, many children will play, many children will be around other younger children, but that never shoot into their mind to murder another child? Of course, it turns out that the two children that did the murder, they had also really horrible lives and such, but that's a whole other story. But the point that I'm making is this is bija, the seed. Where does it come from? It comes from a past life. We are not blank slates. We are not born and starting from ground zero. We come already with a past prepackaged in a new body. But it's asleep. It's lying dormant. But usually around the time of puberty, it starts to awaken. The Supreme Lord reminds us of what we did in the past. And we see that at a certain point, children are attracted towards certain things, and others are attracted to other things. So the bija is what gets us going in the wrong direction. And then when we perform, actually, that unremembered sin that we had cultivated in a previous lifetime, when we finally perform it, then that's the kutastha. Now we've actually acted on it. So once we act on it, then the first installment of sin, the first karmic reaction to sin, is that we get the desire to perform the sin again. And so this is where addiction comes from. Once you do something wrong, you get the desire, this kind of hellish, crazy desire to do the same wrong thing again. And that's the kutastha. And so the kutastha and the bija, they cycle in what's called aparubdha karma. So a person tends to, in a cycle, in a repetitive, redundant way, perform the same sin over and over again. And yet there is no retribution. There is no fallout from it. It's hidden. It's still aparubdha. So day by day, a person is building up this huge sack of karma that they have yet to experience. And every day they're adding another drop or another few grains to it. So it's getting bigger and bigger. And then one day, the sack breaks open. The aparubdha karma becomes parubdha karma. And then suddenly a person is whacked like a hurricane by this avalanche of all these tiny or repeated sins, all having built up to a huge crescendo. And now they are becoming a person's undoing. They are, suddenly destroying and carrying away a person's life into total devastation. So this is the cycle of sin. And so there's seeds, then there's the tendency to repeat those seeds, then this cycle goes over and over again, gradually building up a stockpile, and then the stockpile breaks open, and that's where a person actually experiences big sinful reactions. So those four components to the karmic cycle are called bija, kutastha, aparubdha, and parubdha karma. So when we perform devotional service, we get rid of all four of those properties of the sin cycle. If a person performs prayaschitta, or pious activity intended to get rid of the reaction to past sin, well, that gets rid of some of the aparubdha karma. And it may even mitigate some of the parubdha karma if it's already happening. But it does nothing at all for the bija or the kutastha. We continue the hellish tendency to perform the same sin over and over again. And because we have this tendency deep in our heart, we can give up or make an atonement for the things we've done wrong, but we can't stop sinning. So it's a cycle of sinning and atoning. And later on, we hear of it as the elephant bath phenomenon, where a person understands they've done something bad. They understand that some karma is headed their way. They perform some atonement, but after performing the atonement, which is very difficult, they find themselves getting ready just to perform that same sin again. They feel helplessly drawn into it. So there has to be some way to stop that, and that is devotional service. Devotional service destroys not only the aparabdha and parabdha karma, but it destroys the kutastha and the bija as well. So when the seed is gone, then there's no chance that a person will commit sin again. So that's kind of a brief sort of view of how the cycle of sin works.
Thanks, Maharaj.
Jai, Hare Krishna. So we're 5 past. Any final sign-offs or realizations or whatever? I appreciate that you all have stuck with this, and we came together like the sages did at the Jamuna, or they did at Naimisharanya. And maybe we weren't on the same level, but at least we had a chance to say something about devotional service and about the devotees that are mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, Parikshit, Sukadev, and others.